Okay, you know what? We're just gonna forsake YouTube. YouTube needs to get its act together.
Yeah.
Um, what's up,
What's up?
everybody? So today we're gonna continue our reading of the Tao Te Ching,
Dao De Ching?
and we cannot get YouTube to cooperate properly with Restream. Um, we're streaming directly from Restream's live platform, and it's not working the way any of the frequently asked questions articles say it should. So we're just gonna forget all about
Yeah.
it. um, so with that in mind, I'm going to add another source and share a Chrome tab with this for people so they can look at it.
Right.
And then we're gonna start at 21 because we stopped at 20 yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. You want to? Is there anything you want to say before we actually start doing it?
Um, like anything about the content we're reading or just general stuff?
Uh, oh, that looks hella weird.
Yeah.
Um, I'll just do this. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that works. That way they can see both of us and the screen. Cool.
Yeah, I have mine in a separate window.
Okay, awesome. So I have the chat open. Apparently that only works for Twitch. So if you have a question and you're watching via Facebook, chances are you're watching on my personal page. So please feel free to DM me any questions or comments that you have.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
So we're at 21, right?
Yes.
All right.
You want to? Is there anything you want to say about this before we?
About number 20, I remember number 20 was a little obscure. I still don't have any thoughts about that one.
Yeah, super duper obscure, right?
Yeah.
I agree, dude.
But who knows? Maybe as we keep reading, something will come up.
Yeah, for sure. So who starts today?
I'll start.
Okay.
All right. So 21. The greatest virtue is to follow Tao and Tao alone. The Tao is elusive and intangible. Oh, it is intangible and elusive, and yet within is image. It is elusive and intangible, and yet within is form. Oh, it is dim and dark, and yet within is essence. This essence is very real, and therein lies faith. From the very beginning until now, its name has never been forgotten. Thus I perceive the creation. How do I know the ways of creation? Because of this.
Oh, ooh, that hits me right in the Zen soul.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything you want to say about this one, or should I ramble?
Well, given that we both delved into Zen Buddhism, this makes a lot of sense.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So very basically, one of the things that I've always loved about the Tao Te Ching is that it comes back to this idea of form, essence, and void being interconnected, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in Christianity, Paul says over and over, with God all things are possible.
Yeah.
And Miyamoto Musashi, who had probably very little idea of Christianity, said all things are possible from the void, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then in Zen Buddhism, you have form is emptiness and emptiness is form.
Yeah.
And all three of these things are basically expressing the same idea, in my opinion, right? So the void, the formlessness, and all that stuff, to me, I like to think of it as emptiness in that not necessarily in the way that the Western mind conceives of emptiness, but like an empty vessel that can be filled with, to use Taoist terminology, the 10,000 things, the manifestation of void, right?
Yeah.
Or the manifestation of Tao from void, rather, sorry. And that's really the way I like to think of verses like this one.
Yeah, me too.
Anything you'd want to add?
You pretty much explained everything I was about to say.
My bad.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so number 21. Yield and over.
22.
Oh, 22. See, I can't count. Uh, 22. Yeah, I wish they would have used numbers.
Yeah.
Yield and overcome. Bend and be straight. Empty and be full. Wear out and be new. Have little and gain. Um, have much and be confused. Oh my God, that line is so true.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, the wise embrace the one and set an example to all. Not putting on a display, they shine forth. Not justifying themselves, they are distinguished. They receive recognition, not bragging. They never falter. They do not quarrel, so no one quarrels with them. Therefore, the ancients say, yield and overcome.
Is that an empty
Is
saying?
that an empty saying? Be really whole, and all things will come to you. Oh, man, I'm feeling it today.
Yeah.
Have much and be confused was the first thing to really stand out to me. But, there's this concept even in Stoicism that if you are too rigid, you will face more hardship because you are not adaptable.
Yeah.
In East Asian philosophy, classical East Asian philosophy, they like to think in different metaphors. So one of my favorite ones is the willow that bends in the wind but never breaks, right?
Yep.
So like the trunk that is most forgiving and has the strongest roots will stay strong even amidst the most turbulent storms. This is how I like to think of that. And all of this that comes after that, like the longer portion, is like a human example of what that might look like, right?
Right.
So the more in tune with the Tao we become, the less we feel the need to fight with others. So we find that we end up yielding. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yielding is a underrated skill in life
Right. Because,
because it's not only just like yielding to people when arguments happen or something. It's like even when it comes to life events and stuff, like let's say a death in the family or something, people
Yeah.
tend to hold on to a lot of negative emotion and guilt.
bro,
Whereas, and it's more like stubbornness.
yeah.
And from my own experiences of grief and all that, it's because I didn't really yield to it. I didn't give in to feeling those emotions because I didn't want to feel them.
Hey, Kuro Neko Cake is online. Hi, Booney.
Hey,
Good to see you. Thank you so much. But dude, I could not have said it better myself. You remember when my uncle died? It took me 2 years to get over that because I was stuck thinking that there was something I could have done to prevent it.
yeah.
We both remember that really well. That was a difficult time.
Oh yeah. There's definitely a tendency in our culture to think that not giving into emotion or anything like that is a form of strength, but I don't know. I think the opposite tends to be true.
I would have to wholeheartedly agree with you.
Yeah, and that's not saying like, oh, you shouldn't have goals or you shouldn't strive for like strive to better your situation. It's just being aware of yourself and what's motivating you and stuff.
Yeah. And Booney says, hi, yes, we walk into our experiences. So important. I completely agree with
Yeah.
that. Yeah. One of the things, like, because we both lost our dads, right?
Yep.
And we kept thinking, like, oh, if we were different people, maybe they would still be here.
Right. Or why did this happen? And we just kind of chase this fantasy in our head, or rather, we nurture it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's in watering that attaches us to those like patterns of thought, right?
Exactly.
And that's what causes grief to be even more painful than it is naturally. And in my personal experience, I'll talk a little bit about my weird relationship with psychology on stream in a little while.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really a therapist, but my therapist said that, like, after hearing about my life, I basically had a career as a therapist when I was a kid. And I don't think she's wrong.
Yeah.
But like in doing that, right? We make grief more painful than it naturally is.
Hmm.
And in my experience, that's when people most often slide from grief into depression, and then from depression to major depressive disorder,
Right.
which is exactly what happened to me now that I think about it. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. There's actually a lot in this verse, like not just talking about grief and all that.
Oh yeah, dude. Like you and I have, we've argued, and I've, oh, we lived together for 5 years, dudes.
Yeah.
So there would be times when we'd argue, and like I noticed when both of us were unwilling to just stop and be like, okay, maybe the other person is right.
Yeah.
It made the arguments that much worse and that much more emotionally heated. There were a couple times where we weren't sure if we would remain friends, but I'm glad we did. So,
Yeah.
um, did you want to say more, or should I? Should you read the next verse? I don't know.
I'll read the next verse.
Okay.
Okay, so 23. So to talk little is natural. High winds do not last all morning. Heavy rain does not last all day. Why is this? Heaven and earth. If heaven and earth cannot make things eternal, how is it possible for man? He who follows the Tao is at one with the Tao. He who is virtuous experiences virtue. He who loses the way is lost. When you are at one with the Tao welcomes you. When you are at one with virtue, the virtue is always there. When you are at one with the loss is experienced willingly. He who does not trust enough will not be trusted.
That's interesting that Lao Tzu here repeats the same line
Yeah.
at the end of this verse as he did yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
He who does not trust enough will not be trusted.
Yeah. I kind of think about. Oh, were you gonna say something?
Oh no, go ahead, dude. Yeah, you're good.
Sometimes that old saying that I think about, like, "Oh, ye of little faith." Yeah, but in this context, I think it's like faith in this greater thing that we don't know how to describe.
Exactly, my dude.
Yeah.
The more that I've paid attention to my meditation practice, the more I've come to see the world as a living organism, right?
Right.
That's not necessarily to say that I think there's like some kind of overriding intelligence, just that patterns are things that exist, and they're things in nature that rarely change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, seasons
Mm-hmm.
are typically, like, depending on where you are in the world, they happen at fixed times in the year, and there's nothing you can do to be like, oh, I don't like spring because I have allergies, right?
Right.
It's just gonna happen.
Yep.
Like, there is nothing you can do to make spring or winter or any other season or any other thing for that matter of that nature not happen.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, you know how, going back to what you were saying about ye of little faith, like, that old adage that comes from, I think, the book of Psalms.
I think so.
Damn, it's been a long time. But, he who does not trust enough will not be trusted reminds me of The Alchemist, right?
You're right.
When, and Paulo Coelho says something to the effect of, when you are on your path, the whole universe conspires to help you achieve it.
Right.
When you commit to something with all of yourself, opportunities, in my experience, often show up in very unlikely places.
Right.
And when you're willing to trust that and listen to those signposts or omens, as Paulo Coelho termed them, beautiful things happen, dude.
Yep.
Some hardship happens, but those are there to teach you what to watch out for just as much as what to trust.
Yeah, you kind of have to take that leap.
Yeah, just like in Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, the leap of faith.
Oh, I'm the eagle. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wrong tab. I'm gonna close this tab. It distracts me. uh, 24.
Yep.
He who stands on tiptoe is not steady. He who strides cannot maintain the pace. He who makes a show is not enlightened. He who is self-righteous is not respected. He who boasts achieves nothing, and he who brags will not endure. According to the flowers of the Tao. Followers? Did I say flowers?
Yeah,
I said
flowers.
Wow.
I mean, that's kind of creative, but yeah.
According to the followers of the Tao, these are extra food and unnecessary luggage. They do not bring happiness, and therefore followers of the Tao avoid them. This goes way back to like he who has much is confused, right?
Yep.
When you carry extra mental weight on yourself, I'm not saying life is easy, yo. Like whoever's watching out there, don't mistake me for saying that. I completely understand hardship, but when you add an extra layer of narrative onto pre-existing thoughts and feelings, that pattern of thought becomes so deeply entrenched that it's difficult to uproot. So it's probably best, in my opinion, to begin like practicing that sort of observer self type of mentality with difficult emotions. And when difficult things arise in life, not that they won't be difficult, but they will be much easier to think and reason through and act in ways that are actually helpful to ourselves rather than self-defeating.
Right.
Anything you want to say about this one before I scroll? My bad. I'm used to us both having control over a computer.
I think it's sufficient.
Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory too, right?
Yeah.
Also, people who are constantly telling you they're enlightened or virtuous are probably
I've had plenty of those.
Yeah, they're probably neither enlightened or virtuous.
Yeah.
I am indeed not enlightened, and I am not all that virtuous all the time. So yeah.
Well, there was one thing I was gonna say, like he who boasts achieves nothing, and who brags will not endure. Like when I was younger and stuff, I did that a lot. So yeah, the results are right.
And the more you learn to avoid them, I've noticed your life really did.
Yeah, the less I say about something, the more likely that I'm probably gonna finish it, or something's gonna happen.
There's actually research to your point, but
Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah, about willpower. Yeah.
All right, so 25.
This is me, right? Or is this
read already?
Okay.
Let's see. So something mysteriously born before heaven and earth, in the silence and the void, standing alone and unchanging, ever present and in motion. Perhaps it is the mother of 10,000 things. I do not know its name. Call it Tao, for lack of a better word. I call it great. Being great, it flows. I flow far away. Having gone far, it returns. Therefore, Tao is great. Heaven is great. Earth is great. The king is also great. These are the four great powers of the universe, and the king is one of them. Man follows earth. Earth follows heaven. Heaven follows the Tao. Tao follows what is natural.
I'm gonna out myself as a super big nerd, but the only thing I could keep thinking of was I'm one with the Force, and the Force is with me.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. And it's weird, right? Because we both had experiences where we can feel that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, it's funny to say, but like, when I've had those experiences, I feel super powerful, but at the same time, I feel unbelievably small, but I don't feel diminished by it.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of what Neil deGrasse Tyson said about.
Contemplating the universe.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, so a lot of people I talk to say that they feel really small, like they get depressed by how vast and almost endless the universe is. Hell, it probably is endless for all we know. But he was saying, but I feel big, the fact that I'm a part of this greater whole and all that.
Yeah, like, Carl Sagan said, we are a way for the universe to come to know itself. We are children of the stars. We are made of star stuff, right?
Right.
And like when I think of it that way, like I am composed of various elements that are scattered across the cosmos.
Yep.
When I think of it from that perspective, I feel freaking huge, dude. I'm like, dude, that's kind of dope.
Yeah, dude, come from stardust and all that.
Yeah. So like I don't really understand the feeling of feeling so small that you feel like completely diminished.
Yeah.
You know what I'm? Oh, TJ's up from YouTube. What's up, my brother Bland?
Hey.
Blacktastic. I was gonna say Blandtastic. Apparently, YouTube is working. Cool. Thank you for
Nice.
letting me know, dude. Because it wasn't working when I was trying to pull it up. Thank you. I super appreciate you popping in.
Yeah, thank you.
Um. Okay, now I'm on the next one.
Yeah, 26.
The heavy root of the light is still the master of unrest. Therefore, the sage, traveling all day, does not lose sight of his baggage. Um, oh, my eyes are going blurry. Though there are beautiful things to be seen, he remains unattached and calm. Why should the Lord of the 10,000 chariots act lightly in public?
Mhm.
To be light is to lose one's root. To be restless is to lose one's control. And like, so I feel like it's important to say here
Uh,
that when they say, to be light is to lose one's root, they're not talking about light in the sense of levity, right? Because I've met Taoists that are, man, they're jokesters.
mhm.
But it's like knowing when it is appropriate to act in a light-hearted manner is different than being acting light. What they mean by that, I think, is like treating life as though it's a trivial affair,
Yeah,
right? Because then from that vantage point, you don't have roots, right? You're
right.
sort of like being super reactive.
Yep.
And I think the Stoics would agree on this one, yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
You have anything to add, brother?
Um, yeah, being reactive and all that. Yeah, that's not very healthy mentally and physically, I think.
Dude, who you telling?
I'm talking to myself now.
We've both experienced this, exactly.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to say on this one?
No, I think that's pretty good interpretation of it.
All right, man.
Let's see. All right, 27. A good walker leaves no tracks. A good speaker makes no slips. A good reckoner needs no tally. A good door needs no lock, yet no one can open it. Good binding requires no knots, yet no one can loosen it. Therefore the sage takes care of all men and abandons no one. He takes care of all things and abandons nothing. This is called following the light. What is a good man? A teacher of a bad man. What is a bad man? A good man's charge. If the teacher is not respected and the student not cared for, confusion will arise, however clever one is. This is the crux of the mystery.
What do you want to say about that? I have a feeling you have something.
Um, Uh, I have something, but I'm not sure.
Do you need a jump start?
Maybe.
What is the good man but a teacher of a bad man? What is a bad man? A good man's charge, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that seems paradoxical,
Mm-hmm.
but, like, often we start trying to teach people things before we've fully been able to reckon with them ourselves.
Yeah.
So often, like when you teach, right, you have no control over the message the person actually receives and interprets.
Mm-hmm.
So, in a very literal way, sometimes a good man is the teacher of a bad man,
Yeah.
right? And like, um, conversely, like in the ancient traditions, like there was this idea that you would sit with a teacher for a long period of your life, and they would form your philosophical basis for how you thought of the world. That's what happens with monks, right?
Right.
So in a way, we often think like it's a teacher's job to make us into something, but in Taoism, it's more like you have to unlearn all of your preconceived notions about what you are and return to that nature of the uncarved block. So then, from that vantage point, you are like raw, like Tao expressed again, like you were when you were a child.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, you begin to like pay attention to the world as if it were new.
Mm. I see.
That's and like the whole thing about therefore the sage therefore the sage takes care of all men and abandons no one.
Yeah.
He takes care of all things and abandons nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, like from a Western point of view, Taoism can appear very morally ambiguous, but I think that's because in the East there's this idea of like the wisdom tradition, right?
Right.
Where a teacher will teach in a way that is completely different from student to student.
Right.
So some things superficially will seem as though he's going against himself in his teaching, but in reality he's just trying to impart a different point in a different way to a different student.
Right.
Does that help anything?
Yeah, that helps.
You have anything you want to add?
Um, I don't know. I had this weird thought for the last verse about having the good man and the bad man kind of in your own mind. Like there's a teacher, like a part of you that's capable of looking at something, and then you're able to teach it to yourself through practice and discipline and stuff.
Right.
And if you don't take that seriously, then you're probably gonna, because I've experienced that, you're probably not going to achieve your goals or really understand what you're trying to teach yourself.
That's an interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that was just kind of like a introspective type of interpretation.
I dig it, dude. I dig
Yeah.
it. 28.
Yeah.
Know the strength of man, but keep a woman's care. Be the stream of the universe, being the stream of the universe. Ever true and unswerving, become as a little child once more. Holy crap, I'm on blood, dude. Know the white, but keep the black. Again, going back to the traditional symbol of yin yang, right?
Yep.
Be an example to the world. Being an example to the world, ever true and unwavering, return to the infinite. No honor, yet keep humility. The valley of the universe, being the valley of the universe, ever true and resourceful. Return to the state of the uncarved block. Okay, apparently I've studied this for way too long.
Yeah.
When the block is carved, it becomes useful. When the sage uses it, he becomes the ruler. Thus, a great tailor, cuts little. Oh, dude, this makes me want to read Zhuangzi on stream and the parable of Cook Ding.
Yeah.
Oh, this would elucidate that passage so hard, dude.
Yeah.
Maybe in future streams, you and I could talk about that offline and see if that's something we'd want to do.
Right. I would need to find my book.
It's actually at my house.
All right. Well, that's weird because I actually saw it at my grandma's house.
What?
I don't know. I'll double check. It's been a while. Hell, I'll buy my own copy if I have to.
It's all good, dude. It's all good. There's enough knowledge to go around.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything you want to say about this?
Well, I feel like I already said it. Yeah, I feel like I already said it about the last verse. Apparently my brain was thinking ahead. Yeah, I'd just be repeating myself unless there's something you would like to say.
No, it should be fine.
Okay.
It's 29. Do you think you can take over the universe and improve it? I do not believe it can be done. The universe is sacred. You cannot improve it. If you try to change it, you will ruin it. If you try to hold it, you will lose it. So sometimes things are ahead and sometimes they are behind. Sometimes breathing is hard, sometimes it comes easily. Sometimes there is strength and sometimes weakness. Sometimes one is up and sometimes down. Therefore, the sage avoids extremes, excesses, and complacency. I think this one might as well be a Stoic verse as well.
Yeah, talk about that.
Because we're always trying to improve nature. And, like, yeah, we have all this fancy tech, but we're still, like, learning how nature actually works. Like, if you think about it, even the robots that we try to create are based on natural things in the environment because, well, when we try to come up with things from our own, ideas, sometimes they fail.
Oh, exactly.
Like, airplanes were inspired by, like, how birds fly.
Right.
And then there's a psychological component to this as well about avoiding extremes and excesses because our emotions and our moods are easily changeable. And sometimes we'll have days where we're a little down, other days like we're normal, we're fine. Sometimes our body might feel tense, even though, like, when we wake up in the morning sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, we have to learn to recognize that sometimes that happens, and then we try to make the best of it. It's when we start putting opinions on those things, like pain, for example, that they begin to become, like, it seems like it's too much.
Right.
Yeah.
You're right. You're absolutely right, dude. Digging it. By the way, how far did you want to get today?
I don't know.
All right. We'll just see how far we get by a quarter till rather, and then, like, I'll try to wrap it up with talking about our background with this stuff and, with the weird thing about psychology and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then we'll call it. Whenever you advise a ruler in the way of Tao, counsel him not to use force to conquer the universe, for this would only cause resistance. Thorn bushes spring up wherever an army has passed. Lean years follow in the wake of a great war. Um, just do what needs to be done. Never take advantage of power. Achieve results, but never glory in them. Achieve results, but never boast. Achieve results, but never be proud. Achieve results um, because this is the natural way. Achieve results, but not through violence. Um, force is followed by loss of strength. This is not the way of Tao. Um, that which goes against Tao comes to an early end. Man, this just reminds me of martial arts, basically.
Yeah.
Um, so, like, the harder, like, but since, like, not everyone is going to be familiar with martial arts at all, I guess I, like, will try to think of a daily example. Um,
Um, I could think of one too.
I'll go for it, dude. Yeah.
Because achieve results, never glory in them. We are very results oriented as a society. The idea of success and all that. And I think one of the things that gets in the way of people starting new stuff or trying to think about things in a new way is to always boast, bask, and glory in these results. Like, we kind of build a story around it, or a self-image. Like, it adds to our self-esteem.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's natural to feel things like pride and all that when you achieve a goal after, let's say, strenuous, like discipline and all that.
Right.
Yeah. I think sometimes that needs to be tempered, because even in the West, like, if you look at Homer's Odyssey, when Odysseus so Odysseus goes on like a 10-year sail back to his hometown, and he gets into a bunch of adventures with gods and random mythological creatures. And sometimes, and Odysseus likes to boast a lot. And sometimes, like, when he boasts, sometimes he pisses off a god. And they're like, oh, we'll see about that. And then he ends up in this new misadventure, which he probably would have gotten home in time if he actually didn't boast and be arrogant about how he achieved, because Odysseus was known for his cunning intellect. And we know what the Taoists think about those types of people. So that's what I think. Like, because boasting and being proud, like, overly is, it kind of undermines you. Because what if you don't achieve it again?
Right. And, like, so, to me, right, there's a difference between taking pride in something, like finding joy in having accomplished, and being proud in terms of, like, taking that to a level of arrogance.
Yeah.
Right? So take joy in your accomplishments. There's nothing wrong with that. It's when it turns to, like, this idea of building your self-image around those accomplishments, where that turns into a kind of pride that can be very detrimental to human happiness and psychological well-being.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this was, like, to advise a ruler. So, but, this can easily apply to your everyday life.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Oh, for sure. 31.
Yeah, 31.
Good weapons are instruments of fear. All creatures hate them. Therefore, followers of the Tao never use them. The wise man prefers the left. The man of war prefers the right. Weapons are instruments of fear. They are not the wise man's tools. He uses them only when he has no choice. I should talk about martial arts here. Peace and quiet are dear to his heart. In victory, no cause for rejoicing. Star Wars.
Yeah.
If rejoicing in victory, then you delight in killing. If you delight in killing, then you cannot fulfill yourself. On happy occasions, um, precedence is given to the left. On sad occasions, to the right. In the army, the general stands on the left, and the commander-in-chief on the right. This means war is conducted like a funeral. Um, when people are being killed, they should be mourned in heartfelt sorrow, and that is why victory must be observed like a funeral. And that is such a human perspective.
Yeah. Also, like, it recognizes the unavoidable tendency for war that we have.
Yeah. I feel the need to talk a lot about martial arts in both the specific sense of traditional Asian martial arts and war in general, like being in the military. Because
Mhm.
I have not been in the military, but I come from a very military-oriented family. But can you do me a favor? I really have to go to the bathroom. Can you just like talk to people and check on chat and all that good stuff?
Yeah.
I'm super duper sorry, dude. Hopefully it won't take me long.
Yeah. Hold on.
If you have any thoughts on that, feel free, dude.
Well, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about it.
Oh, then go on.
Freaking.
Oh man, somebody's in the bathroom.
Oh. So yeah, so with this one, like with weapons of fear and all that, let me think. Peace and quiet are dear to his heart if you rejoice. So, by the way, does anyone have any questions? Looking.
Kuro Nigo cake? Okay, going to the bathroom now.
All right. So, followers of the Tao never use them. So one of the things that I could say about this while we're waiting for the captain is the tendency of war and victory. We're always trying to achieve that victory in a battle. And killing your fellow man has, as far as I know, in terms of like philosophy and religion, it's not something you're supposed to like take joy in, like a sadist. Like there's not supposed to be any pleasure in killing. And I think the Taoists recognized that war is unavoidable, and so what they were trying to say is that if you must go to war, then do it without thinking about it in terms of, oh, you're doing this for your kingdom and all that. He's saying conducting it like a funeral, or observing it like a funeral, because war is unfortunate, and there's a lot of complex things that happen. For example, there might be two people like on two different sides of the conflict. Like one person's a part of one kingdom, the other's part of another kingdom, and let's say they were friends. Like let's say they're diplomats or something, or they were traveling merchants, and they get conscripted to serve in the army. They encounter that old friend, but because of the pressures of society and needing to achieve that goal, which is to dominate the other, complex emotions arise, and sometimes I think that's what causes things like PTSD. I think my dad may have had it because he served in Vietnam. The other thing is that um, a war has never been glorious to me. Even when I read stuff from ancient history, war just seemed kind of like almost gratuitous. Like it didn't need to happen, but as long as like we're alive and we keep propagating ourselves as a species, I think war's gonna stay with us. I mean, people could try to argue that war is now being fought with like computers and machines and all that, but even given stuff like drones, it's become, I hate to use the word, but killing has become more efficient. And I think that's unfortunate because now there's even a greater disconnect between the person who controls the drone and the victims of that assault. Whereas before, it was like a human-to-human interaction. Well, I don't want to say interaction, but a human-to-human conflict.
Which is a kind of interaction.
Yeah. So war is complex, and then the Taoists recognize that. I don't think they were strangers to like serving in war even, and maybe as they discovered, they got older and they tried to apply more of this philosophy. Sometimes I think this was kind of therapeutic, but at the same time, war should never be glorious. It should never be. You should never delight in killing your fellow human.
Right.
Because we also have this instinct of like when we kill someone that's of our same species, we kind of get this automatic reaction.
Yeah.
So I mean, that should kind of tell you what nature intended.
So, like, the interesting thing about being in a military family, and by the way, my family is like full of martial artists.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of martial arts as a kid. And, like, one of the things we would say, like, after every class is karate is my secret. I have no weapons, and I hope that I never have to use it. Right? And so there's this recognition that your body is a weapon. Like, ironically, like, your body is the weapon, therefore you have no other weapons. And, like, you pray that you never have to use it, and that, like, that kind of conflict resolution should be the absolute last resort, just like the verse is saying.
Mm-hmm.
And being in a military family, I'm super familiar with like how the military tries to condition the mind to fight in a war. So one of the things that happens is that they dehumanize the quote-unquote enemy.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you allow a soldier to think that the enemy is human, they will have a harder time killing. The military recognize that, so they refined instruments of reconditioning human psychology to create a person who will not look at the other person holding a gun as a human being.
Right.
But as something to remove from the path to victory.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are a threat to country and to society and to all this other stuff. Like, that's how it works. And what Taoism is saying here is that in war, you should think of it as a funeral, because even though you're fighting with these people, you're taking human life.
Yeah.
So, for that reason, war and fighting in general, and I didn't understand this as a younger man, should be the last resort. I fought a lot, dudes. When I was younger, I fought a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I regret almost all of it. Almost. There are very rare exceptions where I think violence effectively communicated my message. But it's very rare.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, by the way.
Yeah. I was gonna add one more thing.
Go for it.
The the fact that people who come back from war and stuff have to go through civilian retraining.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I talked to one of my coworkers who served in the military, and he was talking about that because, believe it or not, some people actually don't know about that.
Civilian retraining, you said?
Yeah, like training to go back into the civilian world.
Oh, by the way, the military sucks ass at that.
Yeah.
Sorry for any of you that are in the military, but like the military is notoriously horrible at helping former soldiers readjust to non-wartime life.
Yeah, and not only that, but like I said, not some people don't really know about it.
So they never go through it, huh?
No, I mean people who aren't in the military don't know about it.
Oh, no.
Unless they have like a family member in the military or they themselves are in the military.
You should know, too, that that's a fairly recent invention of the U.S. Armed Forces.
Yeah, I know.
Because during my grandfather's day and your dad,
Yeah,
that was not a thing.
yeah, I know.
And if they'd had it, maybe they would have stood a better chance.
Right.
And it's just sad because it it makes human life feel disposable, and that's not really something I'm okay with.
Right. It's also why sometimes I have a problem with war films.
Same.
But I mean, especially ones that kind of glorify it.
Hmm.
I'm thinking about certain World War II films.
Yes.
However, a good war film that I think, if you haven't seen it, is 1917. That's
Oh no, dude, that movie is
yeah.
that.
If you want to understand observing war like a funeral, watch that film.
Yeah, that film is very very complicated.
Yeah.
Oof, oof. Yeah, my bad.
Wait, is it 1917 or 1918?
Yeah, 1917.
Okay.
The Tao is forever undefined.
I think it's my turn.
Oh, my bad, dude.
Um,
Go ahead, my bad. I lost track.
so the Tao is forever undefined. Small though it is in the unformed state, it cannot be grasped. If kings and lords could harness it, the 10,000 things would come together, and gentle rain fall. Men would need no more instruction, and all things would take their course. Once the whole is divided, the parts need names. There are already enough names. One must know when to stop. Knowing when to stop averts trouble. Tao in the world is like a river flowing home to the sea.
Man, that's kind of beautiful.
Yeah.
This goes back to, the Tao that can be expressed is not the eternal Tao. The Tao that can be named, like the name that can be named is not the eternal name.
Right.
Right? Like the Tao just sort of is. And I've come to the opinion that even if you don't believe in the Tao doesn't care. It exists.
Yep.
It's a manifestation it's both the cause and manifestations of the patterns of nature and in humanity. That includes environment.
Yeah.
I'm thinking we could do two more and then start wrapping things up for the last few minutes.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. Because I know you want to eat, and I'm starting to get hungry myself, and there's a ton of walnut shrimp in the fridge that I kind of want to devour.
33.
33. Knowing others is wisdom. Knowing the self is enlightenment. Mastering others requires force. Mastering the self needs strength. He who knows he has enough is rich. Perseverance is a sign of willpower. He who stays where he is endures. To die but not to perish is to be eternally present. Man, is it me or did I talk about this yesterday by accident?
I think so.
Yeah. Um, at least that last bit about dying but not perishing.
Yeah.
Um, you have anything you want to say about this one?
I think it's interesting that contrast between knowing and mastering
Mm,
is intriguing because um, I think about yielding and trying to dominate.
yeah.
Yeah. Versus mastering others requires force, mastering the self needs strength. It's, yeah. Whereas if you just uh, contemplate and know, I feel like you get a better perspective than if you were just trying to master.
I
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Although that's very philosophical. It's very abstract in a way.
Yeah.
So like because I also appreciate like practical psychology because you're right. Um mastering other requires force, right? That's obvious.
Yeah.
But like mastering the self needs strength. So it needs lots of things. It needs adaptability. Adaptability is strength, right? Because evolution wouldn't be what it is without adaptation genetically.
Yeah.
Um, it requires a certain degree of mental flexibility. It requires a certain degree of acceptance. And it requires the willingness to admit that you don't know everything, because if you think you know, life will continually prove to you that you don't.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's in accepting that you don't know everything and you can't do everything that, in my opinion, you really become strong. Because when I think about the times that you and I have been most depressed,
Hmm.
it was when we held on to these very fixed views of the world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And, like, that is classically what the West has come to define as strength, right?
Yeah.
Unyielding nature. And I believe it's a misappropriation of Marcus Aurelius when he talked about be the rocks against which the waves crash, and yet you do not move, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Right? But that was just a very Western way of expressing a very Eastern idea of
Mm.
being whatever your nature is,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
That's how I personally take that. And the last one before we self indulgently talk about ourselves.
Yeah. 34. The great Tao flows everywhere, both to the left and to the right. The 10,000 things depend upon it. It holds nothing back. It fulfills its purpose silently and makes no claim. It nourishes the 10,000 things, and yet is not their lord. It has no name, or aim. It is very small. The 10,000 things return to it, yet it is not their lord. It is very great. It does not show greatness, and is therefore truly great.
Hmm. So I don't know how many people watching this have ever seen like those Wayne Dyer infomercials.
Uh-huh.
He was trying to make some money off of Taoism, my dude. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Yeah, who is he?
He was just like he was some random bald dude that like used to be on late night talking about Taoism in a very Western way, and he was trying to sell books on an infomercial. Um, you should look him up. He had some interesting things to say, um, but he gave out one very like useful idea. I think is that the Tao is not like a thing you can define. It is
Right.
a series of processes that you can break down into sub processes. It's just something that is always occurring in the background. So like it never makes a show of itself.
Mhm.
And like he talked about, like if you adopt that mentality, you become greater than you ever thought you could be in a lot of ways, but then you also are humbled by each and every experience that you have. That's not my idea, that's very much his, but I can get behind that.
Yeah,
Um, and it has no aim, it is very small, right?
right.
To me, that kind of speaks to like redefining your personal notion of success, right? Like not having an aim and be accepting of alternate paths to getting wherever, because you don't know where things are going to end up. And like acting like we know is often the very thing that stops us from attaining what we're after.
Yeah.
Um, Entrepreneurs will disagree. I've been one of you, and hopefully you figure it out, dude. I'll just put it that way. Um, so with that, I will stop sharing this, and we could briefly talk about our background, and I will talk about my weird uh, relationship to psychology.
Yeah.
Uh, so, what's your background with this stuff?
Like with all this Eastern stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, I like Star Wars. We both like Star Wars.
yeah, we do.
Yeah, and I was really interested in the idea of the Force, and when we first met and we were talking about all that Jedi stuff because we were super nerds and we read the books and played the games that talked more about the Jedi philosophy. You were like, "Hey, dude, have you ever read the Tao Te Ching?" I was like, "No." So let me borrow a copy. I read it, didn't understand it, even though I pretended to. Um, yeah, so a couple years passed by. We both took an intro to Eastern philosophy class, and that's where like I really got interested in all this stuff because we were learning about Hinduism through the Upanishads, a part of the Upanishads because I know there's more than what that book had.
Yeah, it was called the 13 Principal Upanishads.
Yeah, yeah. Teachings of the Compassionate Buddha, the Analects of Confucius. We read the Tao Te Ching itself, right? Or was that okay?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, and then Zhuangzi or Zhuangzi, depending on how you want to.
Or Zhuang Ji sometimes.
Yeah, Zhuangji. Yeah. So yeah,
Uh,
those were all very cool and fascinating books, and if you're interested in this stuff, I would recommend them.
yeah,
Yeah. But when we started living together and, we had these issues like anxiety and depression, we actually started applying stuff like meditation and even trying to engage in creative hobbies because that's good for us.
yeah.
I found that it was becoming easier and easier to build a better relationship to myself. I mean, there was a lot of struggles and challenges. I'm not
For sure.
denying that. It's only like just recently, like I would say 6 or 7 months ago, where things really started to like coalesce together in my brain. Like the ideas of detachment and not giving in to negative emotion, or hell, even excessively giving into positive emotions, because that's also kind of a trap.
Mm-hmm.
Because once it goes away, like kind of, if you're high too high, you're just gonna fall.
Right.
That's been my experience with it.
Exactly, dude.
Yeah, and also I've had a personal interest in psychology for a long time too. So these ideas, all of these, like come together in a synchronistic way,
Yes.
or is it? Yeah.
Either way, actually,
I think.
synergistic, synchronistic.
Yeah, it's a synthesis.
Yeah. Either way, the same basic meaning, right?
yeah, I found that it really helps with my daily life and what I want to do in the future.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think that's all I got to say for now.
so I'm someone who used to think they wanted to be like a quote real philosopher. Now I tend to think I am a real philosopher, but not in the academic sense. For me, I learned philosophy from a homeless retired professor of philosophy from Southern California who really, really loved ancient Greek philosophy. Um, and he saw me sitting at a mall when we had those,
Yeah.
and he saw me reading Plato, and he's like, "What do you know about that?" And I was like, nothing." And then he asked me a bunch of questions, and he was like, "I guess you do know something." So and then so we started trading um, a meal for like instruction on Plato. And then years later, I happened to be at CRC looking for a girl, and I ran into Dr. Schubert, who teaches the Eastern philosophy
Yeah.
class we were both in. He also has a TED Talk. I may link that later. Um, and he came up, like, I participated in a philosophy roundtable, and he asked me where I studied philosophy. And I said, "What do you mean?" I studied, like, nowhere. Like, I wasn't even aware of anything outside of Plato. I just kind of thought and spoke. And after that, I started talking to some of the students after Schubert left, and I picked up a couple books and started reading. And I found that this stuff was very in tune with things I knew because I was weird. So, like, when I was a kid, um, apparently, if you ask my family, I could speak in complete sentences before I had turned one. And like most of my friends growing up were adults. I didn't really have friends my own age. I was really awkward, didn't have very many social skills. So my uncle at the time was a psych major in the master's program over at Sac State in the 80s. And in order to try to figure people out, I started stealing his books. And I tried to read his books and take what I could and kind of like watch soap operas for exaggerated human emotion and behavior. And then I would marry those two things together and try to figure people out. And most of the stuff that he was reading at the time was Gestalt therapy. That was what was being taught at the time. Gestalt therapy, I like to think of as Jungian psychology without the mystical language.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much my background. I went through a long period of my life with a bunch of one sided, crisis oriented relationships where people would come to me with their problems and I would try to disentangle them. And sometimes I'd end up on suicide watch and sometimes not. So I miserably, like, academically, I performed very, very poorly, in my own opinion, because I was more concerned about like the people around me because at the time I didn't know that one-sided relationships were the kinds of relationships you had with therapists. I thought that was friendship.
Yeah.
Since then I've learned better, but
You remind me of Hannibal Lecter from the show Hannibal.
I'm not a
Although
sociopath.
he's not a cannibal, nor a sociopath, nor a killer. So,
Yeah,
disclaimer.
yeah, but that's my background. So like if it seems like I know random stuff, it's because I do know random stuff. It's weird because like my therapist was like, "Dude, you basically had a career as a therapist for like a decade and a half. Do you realize that?" And I was like, sort of. And like on the flip side of the coin, when I graduated therapy, right? Because I
Right.
was like in a really, really bad mental state, and uh, I couldn't figure it out. But by the end of it, she said to me that, and then I replied to her, this whole experience was like me um, telling you told me the same stuff I would tell um, basically everybody I've ever known was coming to me with a problem. And she was like, "Yeah, I know."
Yeah.
And that just kind of made me laugh, man. So yeah, that's my weird background. It's also because of that that I refuse to go into psychology as an academic discipline because don't have uh, I don't have the emotional fortitude to survive in that environment anymore. But the knowledge is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for
Yep.
watching our weird stream on the Tao Te Ching. Are we doing this tomorrow?
Well, I have a late day tomorrow, so
What time you start?
at 4:15.
If you want, we could do like a short stream, like no more than an hour, like in the morning or something. If you want. If not, like I could just fly solo in the afternoon. It's up to you.
I'll let you know because I'm just thinking like, what if I wake up kind of late or something like that?
Well, yeah, well then in that case, yeah, because I forgot about waking up and sleeping.
Yeah. I've been working a lot of morning shifts, so
So, yeah, just hit me up and let me know how you're feeling that day, and we'll figure it out.
yeah. But yeah, this is fun and enlightening. So
Yeah, same. This is a very different experience than when I've read it before.
yeah, same here. So yeah, thanks for watching us and hearing our thoughts and all that.
I appreciate those of you who took the time to watch or comment or chat.
Yeah.
It means a lot.
Yep.
This is something I think we're going to do with other schools of philosophy to some extent. And then we're going to make this is part of like laying a foundation, right? And then after this, we're going to talk about each of these schools, Stoicism, Buddhism, and Taoism, in terms of their practical psychological value, and kind of make a sort of YouTube playlist about these things that you guys can sort of take what works for you from. But like we need materials in common to begin having a discussion. So that's what these live streams are really about for me.
Yeah.
These are really cool. I like these. Since Booney is in the chat, Booney, do you have any questions? I know there's a 10-second delay. So we'll wait the 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, but dude, I'm having fun doing this. I really am. I really, really, really am. Like, this is so cool. Just the fact that, like, 2 people bothered to, like, come on to Twitch chat, I'm tripping. Because usually when I used to stream games, I'd literally be sitting there for, like, 2 hours by myself. That's a lonely feeling. Well, you don't have to know philosophy.
No, it's it's not a prerequisite. This isn't college.
Yeah, this isn't a class. This is just like us talking about this stuff. So, like, whatever you want to ask, like, dude, I'll do my best.
Yeah, philosophy back in the old days wasn't reserved for academics.
And, like, I kind of want to return it to that. Like, psych and social systems are my thing, so I love the conversation and responses here. Thank you. I really, really dig that. It's interesting, too, because, like, REBT was created by the late Dr. Albert Ellis. Yeah, Albert Ellis?
Yeah.
I think I did, unless I mispronounced. But he was super heavily inspired specifically by Epictetus, which is the reason why in most CBT manuals, right, there's some variant of the quote, some things are up to us and other things are not. Or some things are directly under our direct control while other things aren't. And that is the takeaway straight from Stoicism and the CBT. And Taoism, like, to me, even though, like, a lot of people give credit to Buddhism for the whole mindfulness craze, I feel like without Taoism, we wouldn't have Zen Buddhism, and therefore our modern conception of mindfulness practice in the West would not be what it is for people undergoing and completing therapy and looking for ways to continue what they're developing.
Yeah, there's a whole interesting history behind it too.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Maybe one of these days we will try to get into that a little bit.
Yeah, I would have to rewatch some documentaries.
Yeah. But now, my dudes. Oh wait, can we talk about philosophy more so in terms of application across the lifespan? Some more developmental how to discuss. Ah, oh, that's a really interesting question. You know what? I'm gonna think about that.
Yeah, definitely.
I do think that there are ways to do that, and I've been wrestling with that for a while. Uh, I've been thinking about how to teach, for example, Stoic philosophy to children without teaching them.
Yeah,
Like ways to tell stories that make Stoicism a thing that you can learn as a child without developing emotionally unhealthy habits. Because there's a lot of misconception around Stoicism being emotionally repressive. And if you understand the philosophy in full to any extent, like you start to quickly realize that that's not really what it's about. It's about directing emotions and kind of finding space and choosing how to react rather than just being taken by the emotion. And yeah. So that's a wonderful question. I will probably take a very long time to answer that because it's so complicated.
yeah,
But that is something I'm definitely interested in. So thank you.
yeah. Thanks.
I'm hungry, so I'm gonna go eat food now.
Yeah, I think mine is going to arrive very, very soon.
What did you order, by the way? I'm jealous.
Coco's famous hamburgers.
Oh, dude, I hate you.
Yeah.
All right, all right, dude.
All right.
Yeah, I feel it too, Booney. I feel it too. Until next time, lovely people.
Yep. Until next time.
I'll see you guys later.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.